YouTube, my name is Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm going to be talking about grief and loss and what not to say to a widow. The information I'm about to share is a subject that most people don't want to talk about, but at the same time this is information that could really be helpful to somebody who's lost a loved one. Most of my viewers may not know, most of my viewers may not know this, but I am a widow. My husband died suddenly in a car accident in January 2011, and less than a year later my mother had a stroke and died. Grief is not a process. It's like an open wound that never heals. So please share this video with your friends and family so that another widow doesn't have to hear hurtful words. Someone dies every minute somewhere in the world, and we never know how to handle it until it happens to someone close to you or until it happens to you. During this pandemic, a lot of people have lost loved ones and they're grieving. And you'll never know when death will hit your family. Nobody is exempt from death. So it really sucks when it finally happens to you. Nobody can ever truly prepare for death. You really get to truly understand the grief and pain behind losing someone when it finally happens to you, when you lose somebody that's really close to you. However, this is felt even more intimately when it's your spouse or your parents, perhaps even a sibling. The loss of anyone is extremely painful and it truly hurts your soul. So when you lose a spouse, when you lose your husband, your family, your friends, they come around and they fill that void for a little while. But when the funeral is over, people leave. They go back to their lives. Everything is fine in their life, and you're left to really deal with this emptiness and this void that you feel that you feel in your heart. You are alone. They may continue to call you and check on you once in a while, but after a while I've noticed that they start to avoid you simply because they just don't know what to say to you. They don't know how to comfort you. I'm only going to speak from my own personal experience. I'm sure other people have experienced things a bit differently, and if you would like to share and comfort somebody else who's going through loss, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below this video. I know that you're trying to be there for your sibling or your friend or perhaps even your parent, but because you've never had this happen to you, you don't know exactly how to console them. You don't know what to say to them. You don't know what is appropriate or inappropriate to say to somebody who's had such a tragic sudden loss. I can talk about this without so much emotion because my loss happened about a decade ago, 11.5 years ago. I don't think I would have been able to speak about this publicly, not even 4 years after it happened. I held on to my husband's ashes. For more than 2 years. It was very, very difficult for me to let go. A big part of me died when he died, and then my mother died shortly after. I was crushed. All death isn't the same. When someone has been ill for a while, family members get a chance to prepare for the inevitable. They get a chance to say goodbye. But when someone dies suddenly, like in a car accident, being shot, a heart attack, or any other type of sudden death, you usually don't get a chance to say goodbye. It's very traumatic. It's one of the worst experiences you can ever go through. The trauma lingers on for years, decades, perhaps even for the rest of your life. You eventually just find a place for it and learn how to live with it. This is something that you will always carry with you. So I'm going to be very plain and direct about this. So your friend or your sister has lost her husband. She's grieving and she's in a lot of emotional pain. What should you not say to her? So this is one of the common ones. He's in a better place. What do you mean, a better place? The best place for him to be is right here next to me. This one is very, very offensive. The only time this one is appropriate if you're saying this about somebody who has been terminally ill, fighting a chronic illness for a very long time. So yes, perhaps somebody who's been battling an illness for a long time is potentially in a better place. But don't say that to somebody who's lost someone suddenly, somebody who dies suddenly. That is the worst thing you can ever say to someone. And another one that I heard a lot is time heals. Your friend doesn't want to hear that right now. Her heart is broken right now and she feels like this is going to hurt forever. She's going to have this emptiness and this hole and this pain in her heart forever. So don't tell her that time heals. It's almost like you're suggesting that she should start to forget. At this time most people want to hold on to the pain. They want to hold on to the pain so that they know that it's real, that it's happened. They don't want to start healing. You are not alone. Oh yes, at this time when you lose a spouse, you really, really feel alone. You feel abandoned. And that pain, that void that you're feeling in your heart, you just don't think it would ever heal. You just don't think that hole could ever be filled with anything. All you want is your spouse back. So for once in your life, you do realize that you really are alone. And now this one really annoys me. Everything happens for a reason. It's God's plan. God only gives you what you can handle. And no, I can't handle this. I don't want to have to handle this. At this time, everything sounds like a cruel joke. Even though you think that those words sound nice and comforting, they don't make any sense to the person that's lost their spouse. There's no good reason for you to lose a spouse at such a young age and so tragically. It could be worse. You could have been in the car with him. But that statement sounds like you're implying that it's okay that he died and not you. At this moment, your friend could potentially exchange places. So no, there's nothing worse than losing a spouse. So even though you think that those words are nice and comforting, those words don't make any sense to your friend right now. And God may not be on top of the list right now, because your friend is asking God and wondering why he would take away her husband at such a young age. And honestly, most people may temporarily lose faith in God at this time. So you should give them space and non-judgment so that they can resolve their faith on their own terms, on their own time. However, if your friend, your sister, or your mother is very religious, and you're sure that mentioning God would be comforting to them, then by all means, go ahead. I feel the best thing one can say at this time is, I'm praying for you to have the strength to get through this. And also, please don't ask things like, did he have life insurance? It's none of your business. Unless you're planning to pay for the funeral. And even if he had life insurance, most of the time it takes 6 or more months for the insurance companies to pay out. The appropriate thing to do at this time is to give discreetly, give from the heart, and whatever you give will be appreciated. And please don't say something like, oh my God, I don't know what I would do if this happened to me. I would absolutely lose my mind. And please don't compare how you felt when your dog died. That's just plain insulting. Please don't try to relate unless you've actually lost a spouse. Because when you say things like that, it looks like you're insinuating that the person is not grieving enough, like they should be losing their mind, pulling out their hair, or running around the house like a mad woman. Would that be more appropriate? Would that show real grief? Would that be enough devastation for you? Trust me, you wouldn't want to be in my place. Nobody wants this feeling. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. This one truly threw me off. Some people say things like, oh, you are now free to do whatever you want. Can you imagine? Or something like, oh, well, now that you're back on the market, listen here, this is not like a divorce or a breakup. The person didn't leave by choice. They died. Just these two statements could get you slapped in the face. I would leave those alone. So please don't compare, don't judge, and don't say things like, it's time for you to move on. There is no time frame for when to stop grieving and move on. There's no time frame. There's no calendar. Personally, it took me almost 8 years to feel normal again. Some other women move on, they start dating and perhaps even remarry within a couple of years, or maybe even a couple of months for some. It's not your place to judge. Everybody's situation is different and everybody's timetable is different. So if you really care for this person, don't judge them, just be happy for them. It's none of your business if you're not a widow. You haven't gone through what they've gone through. You don't know what they're feeling. You don't know what their loss is. So keep your judgments to yourself. One thing I found very challenging when it comes to dating after you've lost a spouse is the fact that you still love your spouse. Is negotiating the fact that I still love my late husband. And loving two people at the same time is not an easy emotion to understand or explain to someone else. Maybe it's easier for people who get divorced and have a loss that way because this person chose to leave or you chose to leave. But when you lose, but when a spouse dies, it's just plain horrible. It's one of the worst things you can ever go through. If you want to comfort your friend, you want to be supportive, just be there. Just be there for them. Even if it's in silence, just let them know that you're there for them. Check on them. It's comforting to know that you have the support. And don't avoid them simply because you don't know what to say to them. You don't have to say anything. Just be there for them. They've already lost their spouse. They don't want to lose you as well. But unfortunately, a lot of families break at this time. So it ends up being a double loss for most widows. I really hope that now you have an idea what a widow could be possibly going through at this time. And with this knowledge, I hope that you can be more sensitive and kind with your words and actions towards them. If you found the information that I shared, if you found this information useful, please share it with a loved one, share it with a friend. Share it with anyone who's experiencing loss at this time. Share this with a family who's going through grief. This might be very, very helpful. It can also be very helpful and comforting to a widow. It's helpful to know that they're not alone. And if you are a widow and you're looking for support and counseling, I'm a fellow widow. I've been through this. I understand what you're going through and I know how to help you. So if you need some support and counseling, please visit my website at rachel-mayo.com.